heard in that soundbite 100 million shots in arms by the end of 100 first days in office. That means if you take into account that he needs 2 shots, that he hopes to have
Perennial philosophy as a special form of synchronicity. When you take a look at how human thinking has evolved in our history, one aspect will immediately strike you. There are recurring ideas about the order of the world and human nature that are so deeply rooted in us that they constantly emerge in the thinking of people in different ages, different cultures, and different parts of the world. Already thousands of years ago, the Indian sages knew about this phenomenon. They called it Sanatana Dharma. The term can be translated in many ways. In a fascinating book, In the Search of Cradle of Civilization, George Forstein, Subhash Kark, and David Flowey translate Sanatana Dharma as a perennial wisdom, eternal teaching, and global spiritual traditions. Please be careful, not to be brainwashed, Takayuki-san. In this history of the Western philosophy, Sanatana Dharma was introduced as a perennial philosophy.
Because Joe Biden needs time, not only to pass some of these this big legislation, including the one he just laid out, but also to start the process of confirming the nominees that he has presented for some of the key positions in his administration, because without that, he can't go forward. So there is a real battle and a real discussion going on among Democrats with Joe Biden and his transition team to decide when is actually the best time to start that impeachment trial.
Perennial.
With something they feel is extremely important for U.S. democracy.
Perennial. Lasting a very long time, or happening repeatedly or all the time. I consider perennial philosophy as a special form of synchronicity. It is an independent appearance without any visible connection of identical thoughts in the different minds at different times and in the different parts of the world. Darwinists will probably say that the recurring concepts are somehow genetically programmed. Instead, I take the phenomenon as a sign that human minds have been connected with the cosmic field at all times and everywhere in the world. The conception is impossible. The connection is possible because consciousness is a cosmic property and our individual minds are connected with it. In our discussion of the quantum phenomena, we have found numerous concepts that can be understood as a concept of the perennial philosophy. The Pythagoreans, for example, were the first to propose that all things are numbers. Yes, Aristotle was the first Western philosopher to introduce the concept of potentiality as a modality of being. The concept of the atom was invented by the Leucippus and Democritus around 400 BCE, a long time before John Dalton introduced it to the chemistry in the 18th century CE. Yes. Similarly, countless philosophers, including the Indian sages Parmenides, Plotinus, and Hegel, thought that all is one a long time before the concept of the wholeness appeared in quantum physics. Many other examples can be found, such as Plato's thesis that atoms are mathematical forms and Kant's view that there is a part of reality, the world of noumena that we can't see. In some cases, including Anaximander's Apollon and a Shaivist concept of the spanda, The congruence of the spiritual and the physical is so complex and detailed that it is striking. In their attempt to understand the nature of things, the early Greek philosophers started out by researching for a primeval substance or element out of which all things are made. Some thought that this element was earth, others thought that it was water or air and fire. Searching for a primeval substance as the source of all beings was the beginning of the materialistic European tradition of the thinking. Yes, you are right. In this situation, and in contrast to this trend, Anaximander of the Miletus, a 6th century BCE Greek philosopher, developed the concept of the apeiron. The origin of the world, he said, and the cause of all being isn't any material stuff that we know. It isn't anything like earth or water. It is something indeterminate and infinite, and as the historian of philosophy Hans Joachim Strolig describes the Anaximander's definition of the opinion, cold and warm, dry and wet, have separated out of it. Hirschberger has discovered how the concept of the apeiron implies the existence of a non-empirical realm of the reality that underlies the visible world. Hirschberg's argument is that something that is indeterminate and infinite is logically undefined and must be infinite both in space and time. That is, it is eternal and omnipresent. Something that is totally indeterminate can't be anything empirical. It can't be anything material because if it has empirical qualities, it isn't completely indefinite, right? Indeterminate, yeah. So again, it has a, It can't be anything material because if it has empirical qualities, it isn't completely indeterminate. If it consists of matter, it must some empirical properties. So, the apeiron is a necessarily non-empirical, non-material, and since everything that exists comes out of it, it has the nature of potentiality. Anaximander's apeiron is an archaic model of the Heisenberg quantum potentiality. Really didn't know that? As Sturlig described it, constantly new worlds are emerging out of the indeterminate infinite and return into it. Like Heisenberg's quantum potentiality, Schrödinger's wave mechanics too has ancient roots, really. When Erwin Schrödinger postulated that the electrons in the atoms are waves, the scientific community was stunned because Schrödinger's theory implies that the visible world is created out of a realm of invisible waves. Few scientists were aware of the fact that Schrödinger's wave mechanism revived an ancient spiritual principle, the concept of waves as a principle of cosmic creativity. Wow. The up and down and back and forth of waves create a vibrational motion, like the swinging of the pendulum. When we think of the waves in a symbolic way, they are often associated with a boundless ocean, like the ocean of divine, of consciousness, or of the infinite creativity. In Kashmir Shaivism, a Hindu philosophy of the 18th century CE, cosmic vibrations were thought to be a principle of cosmic creativity. In the Kashmir Shaivism, spanda denotes subtle vibrations, waves, or slopes of the universe. These waves aren't visible in a physical medium like water waves or air waves, but are vibration in the divine. Vibration of divine. Wow. In this spiritual tradition, origin and basis of a manifested world were seen in a divine consciousness that has a nature of vibrations. The empirical world is an emanation out of the realm of waves or an ocean of potentiality. You can find an exciting description of these concepts in Paul Eduardo Muller Ortega's book, The Triadic Heart of Siva, that self-consciousness in the heart in which the entire universe without reminder is dissolved. Muller Ortega writes, is called in the alternative text the vibration, spanda, and more precisely the ultimate vibration, samanya spanda, and its nature is an overflowing of the self. Overflowing of the self. Wow.
À 2 600 000 et sans regret, c'est votre enchère Bruno. J'adjuge à 2 600 000. Adjugé 2 600 000.
This must be Tintin and Snowy's most expensive adventure yet. An original painting by Tintin creator Hergé sold for a record of 3.175 million euros, including auctioneer's fees, breaking a previous record set by Hergé himself in 2014 for more Tintin cover art. Auction house Arcurial didn't reveal the mystery buyer's identity. Belgian illustrator Georges Remy, better known as Hergé, submitted the painting as a front cover for the 1936 book The Blue Lotus, but the color palette used was deemed too expensive to reproduce.
It is fascinating how the concept of the cosmic consciousness appeared in a connection with the spanda as well as the quantum waves. As Muller Ortega explains, spanda is a wave of ocean of the consciousness, without which there is no consciousness at all. This consciousness is the essence of all. Without this cosmic consciousness, or our own consciousness wouldn't exist. The world of Kashmir Shaivism is non-dualistic. All things and phenomena are united in the cosmic consciousness or its waves, in which the manifested world is created. The ultimate, Muller Ortega explained, is spanda. It vibrates, it expands and contracts. Contraction. It manifests and reabsorbs. Wow. And in the quantum physics, material particles constantly comes out of the realm of potentiality waves and dissolved again in it. They expand and contract. They manifest and reabsorb. Wow. Quantum physics doesn't understand the realm of potentiality as an ocean of consciousness, and every reference to the Unimials is alien to it. Nevertheless, the form in the realm of potentiality have mind-like properties like spanda. These similarities weren't intended by the physicist, but they show, nevertheless, to what extent physics has moved science into the context of the spirituality. Spanda is, as Muller Ortega writes, internal dynamism. Be skeptical, Nijima-san. It is a source of the movements that result in the process of the manifestation. It is full of bliss, and yet suffering occurs. It plays a game of the hide and seek with itself, in which the ignorance alternates with knowledge, and in which enjoyment and revelation can coincide. Apart from the fascinating connotations with contemporary physics, I find the poetry of this understanding of the world very moving. The science of the supreme is shot through with a creative tension, writes Muller Ortega, a primordial urge, an impelling force. Wow. This force is a Shakti, the power of the ultimate. It is the power that sets up the vibration that characterizes the consciousness and which allows consciousness to be the foundation and the essence of the all manifest reality. So what are the lessons to learn from the potential from the perennial philosophy? Do we have to believe now that the Schrödinger's wave are slopes in the divine? I don't think that the lessons are so specific, but they are of a general kind. We realize, for example, that the science isn't so slang and disconnected from our spiritual thinking, consciousness or unconsciousness, as the scientists always claimed. It doesn't seem very likely to me either that the concept of the perennial philosophy are somehow somehow wired into our genes. I don't see, for example, how the awareness of appearing enhance my biological fitness. I take the longevity of the ideas as a sign of their verity. Many theories are constantly invented, but only those that correctly describe a true aspect of the world survive in the memory of humanity. Right. The same is found in the arts. Lots of these things are constantly being painted and sung about. But if it doesn't catch a true aspect of the world, no painting, poem, or song will endure, right? The most important lesson from the perennial philosophy is that consciousness means cosmic connectedness. Your mind is connected with a transpersonal domain. It follows that your potential isn't restricted to the activities of your genes. It is much more. It is the creative tension, the primordial urge, the impelling force. It is a splendor in you, and therefore it is infinite. Just try it out.
Civil society, which has prospered amid new freedoms of association, continues to protest for human rights and personal freedoms. At the organization Damage for Equality and Justice, SAFE explains to us the challenges which remain for Tunisian democracy.
فما تغير قاعدين نلاحظوا فيه خاصة في علاقة بالسياسات العامة للدولة، في علاقة بالاعتداءات البوليسية ولا منظومة البوليسية في تونس.